Okay, so today we're going to be looking at questions 21 through 24. What we're going to be looking at is I'm going to give you guys 2 points. And so for some questions, I want the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line. And then for some other questions, I want the standard form. So make sure you guys read the instructions. All right, so to begin with, I need the slope. And then remember what I'm going to do is I'm going to label each number to my points. My first point, let me call this x1, y1. What that represents is x of the first point, y of the first point. And then my second point, let me call it x2, y2. And then for my slope, let me use m for slope. The formula we're going to be using is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I have the formula. Let me replace my values. So I'm going to have -1 minus 1 over 0 minus a -3. So that gives me -2 over +3. Right at the bottom, minus a negative, that don't forget to change that to plus. That's how I got a +3 at the bottom. Now, when there's a negative sign, bring it to the front. So it's a -2 over 3. It doesn't matter if the negative comes from the top or from the bottom. Just bring it to the front. Simplify the fraction if you can. In this case, we cannot. So I have my slope. What I'm going to do now, let me choose a point. It doesn't matter which one, so I'm going to choose this one. And I'm going to do what we did yesterday. Remember when we had a point and a slope? So we're going to do y minus 1, y minus the y value equals, my slope is -2 over 3. And inside parentheses, let me write x minus a -3. You can call that x plus 3. Remember how yesterday, when we had a point and a slope, we used the formula y minus y1 it's equal to mx minus x1. That's basically what I used. So on the left side, y minus 1 is just y minus 1. On the right side, let me distribute the -2 over 3. So it's going to give me -2 over 3x. I know negative times a positive is a negative. 2 over 3 times 3. You can do that at the side. 2 over 3 times 3. You multiply with the number on the top and you divide with the number at the bottom. So it's going to give me 2. To get the y by itself, the -1, let me move it to the other side. Don't forget to switch the sign. So I'm going to write that as a +1. So I'm going to get y equals -2 over 3x minus 1. Right? -2 plus 1, that's where I got the -1. Okay, all together. The slope-intercept form is in the form y equals mx plus b. So we're done. Let's take a look at question number 22. Let me get the slope to begin with. Remember, I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm just going to go 3. I'm going to write m for my slope. It's going to be 3 minus 1, right? The second y minus the first y over -2 minus 0. That gives me 2 over a -2, which is better known as -1. Right? Bring the negative to the front. 2 over 2 is 2 divided by 2 is 1, so -1. I'm going to choose a point. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to choose this one. And I'm just going to go for my formula. Remember, y minus y1 equals m. And then inside parentheses, x minus x1. So let me write this as y minus 1 equals -1. Inside parentheses, I have x minus 0. So that gives me that y minus 1. Let me distribute the negative sign. So negative 1x. And negative times a negative is positive, but 1 times 0 is 0. I'm not going to write plus 0. Like, I'm just not going to write it. It's not there. Not necessary. Now, to get the y by itself, this minus 1, let me move it over as a plus 1. So I get that y equals negative x plus 1. So that's when it's slope-intercept form. Now, when we have it in standard form, I'm going to start it the way I do slope-intercept form. That's how I'm going to start. So to begin with, let me find the slope. And remember that's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to label my points x1, y1, because that's the first point, x2, y2, because that's the second point. So I have 1 minus 3 over negative 5 minus 4. That gives me negative 2 over negative 9. The negatives cancel out, so my slope is 2 over 9. And then I have to choose a point. Remember the formula, y minus y1 is equal to m, and then inside parentheses, x minus x1. You don't have to choose the first point. You choose the second point, but it doesn't matter which point you choose. I will choose the first point, but you don't. It doesn't have to be the first point, as long as it is one of the 2 points. So let me write this as y minus 3 is equal to 2 over 9 x minus 4. I know I have to get rid of fractions. I can write this as the slope-intercept form, but to be honest, because I know in standard form, I cannot have fractions. So let me start by doing that. Let me multiply everything by 9. So I'm going to multiply 9 times y, 9 times 3, and 9 times the fraction. I don't have to multiply to the inside of the parentheses, but I'm going to multiply everything by 9. That is going to get rid of fractions. So that gives me 9y minus 27 is equal to 2 times x minus 4. I chose 9 because that was the number at the bottom. Get rid of fractions. So that's going to give me 9y minus 27 is equal to 2x minus 8. Notice how it's much easier without fractions? All right. So a couple of things I'm going to do. The x has to go to the left. So let me write this as a minus 2x. And this minus 27 has to go to the other side. Letters on the left and numbers on the other. Notice that anything that I move, I switch the sign. So this gives me negative 2x plus 9y equals 19. Now, we're almost there because we're supposed to have no fractions. We're supposed to have the x and the y on the left side, starting with the x. And the last thing is we cannot have negatives with the x. So let me switch all the signs. So that's going to give me 2x minus 9y equals negative 19. I switch all the signs in order to not have negatives with the x. All right, let's do another example. Let's take a look at number 24. First of all, let me find the slope. Remember, this is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Now remember, the formula for the slope is the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. So I'm going to go 5 minus a negative 3 over negative 2 minus 3. On the top, plus minus, minus, that gives me plus. So that's 8 over a -5. I know fractions, when there's a negative sign, bring it to the front. And then, so it's -8/5. That's my slope. And then I'm going to use the formula y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. So I'm going to choose a point. Let me choose this one. So I have y minus a -3. Might as well just write it as y plus 3 equals a -8/5. And inside parentheses, I have x minus 3. Don't want fractions, so let me multiply everything by 5. So this times 5, this times 5, this times 5. Don't have to multiply to the inside of the parentheses. That's why I'm doing it to begin with. So that gives me 5y plus 15 is equal to -8 and then x minus 3. Let me distribute the -8 to get rid of parentheses. So I have 5y plus 15 is equal to -8x plus 24. So a couple of things. The x has to come to the left. So positive 8x. There's letters on the left side. This plus 15 has to come to the other side as a minus 15. Don't forget to switch signs. So that gives me 8x plus 5y is equal to 9. X's and y are both on the left side. I have no fractions, and the x does not start with a negative. Let me zoom out. That way you guys can take a look. And there you go.